Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Scott Coyne, and I'll be your host for this episode. And I'm joined by our very own Mr. Stat Attack and resident Genki, Mr. Joris Beck. How are you this evening, Joris?
I'm still a bit heartbroken because of Oyen's injury, which is probably already the biggest league news of this week. I'm ready to dive in, though. I've missed this part of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. We're back to regular match day reviews. This is match day one, which is in the books. And we'll come on to talking about Luca Oyen in a little while because that is a big story, and I'm a big fan of Luca Oyen, so I kind of have a lot of sympathy with Joris. I feel his pain. So what we're going to do, the routine by now, folks. We're going to do a little review of match day one. And one of the things I kind of learnt this weekend, Joris, I don't know about you, but I think there's a number of sides that aren't quite up to speed yet, not only in terms of fitness, but as we talked about in our transfer review, their recruitment is quite a bit behind as well. What did you learn this weekend?
A few things were already confirmed, few surprises as well, of course. Indeed, you can see some teams are more ready than others for this season, but also a lot of teams can use the excuse that at least on Sunday it was really hot in Belgium. So I think on Saturday as well, but with the constant water breaks, there really is an excuse if you were physically not ready, but you can only use it this time.
Why don't we start actually with the big kickoff itself, the first game of the weekend at Slessen, Standard Liège 2, Ghent 2, which was a really exciting opening game, actually. What did you make of the big kickoff?
It was a very exciting game, wasn't it? Like everything was in it. I think one man was very happy that he was suspended at Gent's side as in Hen van Azenbroek as a manager, because well, to cut to the chase, there were two phases where his team definitely deserved a penalty, and on the other hand, they also conceded quite a cheap penalty, given penalty as well. So they got a bit unlucky that they didn't run away with the 3 points there. On the other hand, we already had the first red card of the season inside the first 15 minutes, which is just crazy as well for Standard. I guess you can, for both yellow cards, you could say something, but yeah, it's really harsh to give it at the first game of the season and getting into it. I personally would not mind if they keep on doing that in each and every game, and that's I fear is not going to happen. But if it does, I'll be happy with that. Let it be a warning for players to be a bit more careful, especially after you get your first one. The second one was even clearer for me than the first one, so that was a bit of a silly challenge as well, regardless of was it worth a yellow or not. Just going into it, Kalut was just a bit late with his tackle, and then there's always the risk already to be get a second booking, get a yellow card, and well, in this case, a second booking. Let's hope that he learns from that. Yeah, of course, Standard were down to the 10 men after so early on. Of course, at that time it was still scoreless game. They took the lead through that cheaply given penalty, I guess, where Tonura Riga got the ball first, slightly though.
Was, was it a penalty, though?
Yeah,
I've got to ask you that. What do you
I
think?
would not have given it because he got the ball. Of course, he also hits Amala a bit later, but there's a few factors there. One, well, the big one is actually Amala makes such a meal out of it as well. Like, well, even if he was not
Yeah.
touched, he was already falling. I think even going down. So that's very. Yeah, I think it's also a thing that the referees explained the changes in the refereeing department, what we can expect, and that they would look more for if a player is already simulating beforehand, before there might actually be a foul. They would be more strict in that and rather not give it. At least has not happened there. And the second thing is, of course, it always looks worse on in your slow motion screen with the VAR as well. But even there, you can see he touches the ball first. So
I felt it was a little bit soft actually. They got lucky on that one. That's what I thought. It was interesting, obviously, because this game really is a story in a way of kind of three penalties. Obviously, there were two really big penalty shouts for Ghent, which we can't not talk about, I suppose, because they were that controversial. I suppose there's the free kick where the elbow comes out quite obviously, and I am still amazed that nobody saw that. The linesman didn't pick it up. Visser didn't see it. Nothing was checked. It was really, really obvious that an obvious elbow had come out and motioned towards the ball. I thought that was a definite penalty for Ghent. And obviously the other one right at the end where Bodart knocks out Turanariga in an attempt to clear the ball, clears the ball, but obviously takes the man out completely as well. And I just, for me, that was a penalty as well. And I know that was the one of the two that enraged the Ghent bench even more, understandably. And they're still quite unhappy with the officiating at the game. And I understand that they are going to be releasing a statement, I think, from what we can gather. They are going to say something about how they felt that match was handled from their point of view. I don't know about you, Joris, but I actually thought Ghent controlled the majority of this game. I felt they were really very good on the ball, and I was quite impressed with them. They're in a good place at the moment, I think, and obviously they're coming off the back of the Super Cup defeat, but it was a strong performance from them, and they really did grow into the game. Standard started it better, obviously. Ghent managing to turn it around after going 1-0 down after the penalty. And much like they did, I thought they'd done enough to win it until we get to obviously the 89th minute. Duchesne pops up with another header from another fantastic cross to rescue a point for Standard. But I did see some signs for Standard fans to be optimistic. I felt there was a degree of fire in their belly, and I don't think they played badly at all. You could kind of sense the nerves, despite the fantastic atmosphere, I thought.
In my case, it's not necessarily pleasantly, but I was surprised by the level of Standard. They were really not that bad for most part of the game. You already touched on, indeed, another headed goal. It seems to have been a theme of it across the whole weekend that started off brilliantly in there. Both headed goals and headed assists as well. With Lemajic first having an assist for the equalizer. So yeah, let's maybe go there. Amala through the scoreline. So Amala scored the penalty that we already talked about. Then Tissoudali, it was not meant, I think, but still on a layoff of Lemajic. What turned out to be a layoff from Lemajic. We put it in the 1-1. And Lemajic then, with a nice header, scored the 2-1 before, well, as you mentioned, Ducen did manage to score from a brilliant cross from Kanak, indeed. Definitely one the start of a weekend of headers.
Yeah, we did see a fair few leaping salmons this weekend, as we like to say in Scotland. You mentioned Salim Amala there. Actually, coming back to him for a second, he's interesting because for a long time it's looked like he was going to be heading out of Standard, but Ronnie Dyler has been quite public now and saying that he's been impressed by him in pre-season and he really would like him to stay. So after a pretty decent performance from him this weekend as well, scoring the penalty as well as winning one, obviously he's obviously got some fire in his belly that Dyler's responding to, and I think he obviously feels like he needs that experience and that little bit of quality that he can bring when he's playing well to the squad. So it'll be interesting to see if they can hold on to him and Ronnie can persuade him to stay a little bit longer.
Yeah, indeed. That's going to be the story for a lot of players in the upcoming more than a month, even until the 5th of September or the 6th of September, even for as long as the transfer window is open in Belgium.
That's right. Yeah, we've got another 5 to 6 weeks. Plenty can happen in that time. Let's move on and pick up on the Zebras then. Charleroi, they were at home to Eupen on the opening weekend and managed to come away with a 3-1 win. I actually thought Eupen played kind of quite well during periods of this game, but just weren't incisive enough when they really needed to be. Whereas Charleroi were, they're very good at hitting you on the break sometimes, using a bit of pace and power, and they were able to exploit that this weekend. I thought I had a feeling watching Eupen that as we were talking about in our pre-season preview as well, everything was confirmed to me that I think they're going to be in for quite a long, hard season. I would expect them to recruit a little bit more, but the worries worries I had before this weekend's game were very much confirmed. What did you think?
Indeed, they seem not to be too ready yet. They definitely still need some things, and yeah, they rely too much on a few players. They didn't start that bad, to be honest. I have to say, Charleroi managed to score after 18 minutes with Saruri after a really nice build up with Zorgan as well, and well, just a very nice team goal. Yeah, and Charleroi seems to be more ready, even though the fans are very skeptical and are a bit chasing the board for not having signed enough players yet. I do think they did sign a few players now just on the verge of last weekend, so at least also on that front, some things are moving. Going back to the game itself, they basically managed to score a header straight after the break. They make it 2-0. So that you think the game was done and dusted by then, but Ndri brought some excitement back into it and I'm sure our colleague Ben definitely would enjoy that. An Ndri goal 50 minutes before the final whistle. It stayed like that, so there was some excitement until in the game, in the scoreline sense at least, until the end when Golizade managed final 3-1 in the dying seconds. We also had a lot of goals in the final minutes of the game after minutes 85. Of course, it's just a very randomly picked number here, but
Yeah, I was really pleased to see Conan and Dree getting on the score sheet for Eupen. Actually, he's a player who didn't feature nearly enough for them last season. Really good player. We know how many players that Eupen have lost pre-season. A huge turnaround there. So to hold on to a player with the quality he has, because in his day he definitely has it. So to see him scoring again was great, and they're certainly going to need him to be performing at the top of his game. I think if they're going to have a good season. We know that Smil Preveliak and Steph Peters are still there. There's the obvious worry that if something happens to one of them, then who's going to help carry the load for them. Preveliak getting an assist for Indri's goal, but they really need to hold on to those two and add a bit more depth to the squad. I think, don't they, just to ensure that they don't slip into that long hard season that I was alluding to, which I think they might have. I have a feeling as well, Joris. I don't know what you think, but I think their home form is going to be really, really important this season. I think they're going to need to really look at trying to pick up most of their points at home and trying to make the Keerveg Stadion a real fortress this season.
I think they'll be happy wherever they can get the points, honestly, as well. Also, given they will be using a more defensive approach, I actually would expect them to be a bit more prone to take points away from home than at home. From in that sense, that yeah, at home teams generally tend to take a bit more initiative because they feel obligated to do that for their fans. Well, it's just a bit of the way football goes. I think it will be a very difficult season for them. That's still, it's really really early days to say something about that, but it does look like they won't be in a good position quite soon.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Stork's experience is going to count a lot. I think over the course of the season, and I think they're going to have to work on their defensive shape as well, which they will do with him as a coach, and a lot of their base is going to be founded on that, and we'll see how they get on in the next few weeks. Let's move on to the Gildensporen, where Kortrijk were at home this weekend to Leuven. The game finishing Kortrijk 11-2. Scoring the goals, obviously, were Mertens and Altamari right at the end. And let's dive straight in. And here's a big question, because I know that the Kortrijk fans, the Kerels, are already starting to revolt a little bit on Karim Belhassin. There are signs that the fans are not happy, certainly with this weekend's performance. I felt they started very well, as Kortrijk often do. I thought the first 20 minutes they were very bright. They were aggressive. They were exerting lots of pressure, and they actually looked quite good. But again, as often tends to happen with them, they sort of fell out of the game as Leuven's influence grew. What do you think?
I do get the fans. I do think they still lack a bit of creativity. I do agree that they might lack a bit. Whether that's up for the coach, that's something else. I'm personally not a huge fan. I'm not that big on Bellosin. He's also not the worst manager ever, and I do think their squads should be fine. So I've actually put them in 11th spot. They are a team indeed. They need to pick up points early because if they have a terrible start, I can imagine them really having a struggle. I think that's also more connected to what I said in the preview. I think I put them in my final prediction a bit higher than I expected to put them when I was talking in our preview. I do see them struggling if they don't pick up form yet, but I don't know their schedule by heart. But if they pick up some points, and get a first win across the first few weeks, as with many teams, I think that goes for almost half of the league. They might be fine, and if not, then yeah, they might be in for a struggle. But I do still think they should be fine in the lower mid-table brackets. I think there's teams worse than them. Whoever the manager is, even.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I was a wee bit disappointed not to see Ben Shaib start, and we didn't see of any at all of Yusuf Chalo, which was a bit of a surprise as well. So I have a feeling that Belhassine's still working through his strongest 11 as well. They've added reasonably well. As we know, there's a bit of depth and quality there. So yeah, I think they will get better. Leuven, on the other hand, a side that we do have some worries about. They're lacking up top, as we know, and Mark Bryce, the wily old fox that he is, one of those coaches who never really seems to get credit for the good work that he does. I think he really is somebody who knows what he's doing, even if it isn't obvious from the outside. I think he set them up very well this weekend, and they grew into the game, and I think they got better once they took the lead as well. Defensively, they looked pretty good as well. I felt.
Yeah, definitely. I guess this was a bit of a game of two halves. First half more for Kortrijk, but they didn't convert, and then the decisiveness made the difference in the second half, where Leuven were the better side, and they did score on a few occasions. Talking about teams that I had predicted as a relegation, Leuven is one of those teams. I've put them even lower than Eupen in 17th place. It's way too early to make definitive comments, but they already got 3 points, and I think last season it took them 8 weeks or so to grab their first win. So that's actually a head start, even compared to a relatively mild season, I guess, to say, that they had last season, regular season, normal season. They still lack a striker, I think, even if they signed a few players lately, and I'm not sure if that defense will hold for that long. It goes a bit together with the lack of creativity at Kortrijk side, of course. So Leuven's defense was indeed good, despite the choice in goal, which definitely for you was quite controversial, in Kojakaru, getting the first team spot, and at least for now, and Jakkers being benched.
That was an interesting one. I was very surprised by that, and obviously Mark Bryce has seen something that has led him to kind of go with Kojakaru for the moment, who actually had a pretty solid game. I think from Yakker's point of view, the strange one for me is I do think he's a really good goalkeeper, and obviously when he left Beveren to Leuven, he's moving up a division, which is the right thing for a keeper of his quality. I think he stayed at Beveren after the relegation, obviously at the end of the previous season, and the expectation that they might come straight back. Obviously that didn't happen, so he's left, come to a new club expecting to play, and it isn't happening at the moment. So we'll see what happens in that one, because I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that one. Something else as well that I thought was interesting: Leuven's young 21-year-old defender Louis Patrice obviously provided the two assists as well. He had a very good game, as did Altamari, getting a goal right at the end. So I think Mark Bryce will be pretty pleased with his opening weekend, and he did say before this game that he felt it was going to be a tough one and an important one to build up 3 points on.
And to come back to Patrice, I also wanted to give him a shout, but also I know his rating got a bit bumped because of indeed getting the second assist as well. But yeah, you can't really say it's an assist if Altamari runs from his own half still afterwards, I think, and dribbles a player, and then after a long run manages to squeeze the ball past Illich. it would be better to know the rating without that second assist. I'm sure it still would be really good, but it's a bit skewed like that.
Yeah, you raise a very good point there, Joris, around what is an assist nowadays. I think that discussion is for a whole other podcast. I think let's move on. Let's move on to the Regenbogen Stadion for Zulte Waregem 2, Serang 0. Goals coming from Fadira and Borja Lopez getting a goal on his debut for Zulte. You took this match in, didn't you, Zoris? You were very lucky to watch Serang against Zalta, because I know you weren't particularly excited by the thought of this. What did you think?
Yeah, that I was quite excited to see. Well, excited is the wrong word. That's maybe a perverse way, even, but to see both sides, given both sides last season, Serret confirmed the doubts that we have about them. Only two shots. One really big shot. It was a header from Concesado that he probably should have converted when it was still 0-0, but it was not on target. And yeah, that was also the team. So also the other shot that they had was also not on target. So zero on target. One of the two teams, will come back to the other team later on that this weekend that did that. With this one, it was a bit more expected than with the other one, I think. That this is just a little tease. Yeah, Zulte Waregem looked quite all right, actually. They looked like we can't really make much assumptions or evaluations yet after this game against this opponent, with all respect for that opponent. Still as well, but yeah, Xerei is one of these teams that's definitely not ready yet, so that's why it's difficult to evaluate. Yeah, Zulte Waregem looked a bit more up for it already. That you could make of it. Also, it took them an awful long time to break the deadlock, only managing to score that first goal in around the 75th minute mark. Again, a headed layoff from Vosse for Fadera. It was also the way the goals fell. So that was I think that I don't remember completely, but I think it came from a deflected corner and a set piece. But then on the second round of getting the cross in, and the second one was also a header from a set piece. Of course, a very crucial point. It's good for Borja Lopez. To score on his debut. Of course, it's not his main task, but it's always good if a Zulte Waregem defender gets some confidence. Also for the whole defense, I guess it's no matter who they're playing against, it is really encouraging that they got a clean sheet already. So that's definitely a big plus for them. For Serre, Deitch was, despite the goal, conceding twice, their best man. Yeah, then that's probably does say a lot about them. The first half, they were not that bad. They were, you can't really say not that bad, I guess, since they really were not any kind of there was not really any kind of danger. But they had a few breakout moments where they didn't manage to get the final pass in, and of course these are not in the clear stats. You can see maybe in the underlying stats there's a bit more hope for them, but yeah, they made the wrong choices. By the looks of it, they really need someone else, definitely as well, still up front. They are not done with their homework yet.
Yeah, couple of big questions for you, and you've touched on them a little bit. What one in relation to each side actually? Zalta's defence, which is more or less a completely new setup, which I think we all agree had to be, because defensively they've just been. We know how poor they've been over the last season and a bit defensively. Did you see any green shoots of solidity to think that the new defence, if you like, is going to be significantly better? And in relation to Serang, did you see anything at all that contradicted, I think, a view that we all share, and that is that it's going to be really hard for them this season?
On the first question, I'm just gonna use a pass because of the opponents. They did manage they didn't manage they did manage to take out these definitely more first half breakout opportunities maybe for Cerezo. They managed to keep them out, but it's really difficult to judge them. Whether that's an achievement or not. And I know I really sound a bit too condescending, I guess, for Serre. But to come back to the second question, no, not really. It's really also another surprise is that Christophe Leprin at 37 didn't expect to play in 1B. I signed a contract in first division in the end, and he just got dropped in the first 11. So nothing against the player or not a play against the player he used to be, but it is another worrying sign that
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. And your point about it being too early to judge Zolta's new defence, I think is also a good one actually, especially considering the opposition. But we'll find out in the next 2 or 3 weeks because they're certainly going to be coming up against tougher opposition. That's for sure.
actually there I do not exactly know the schedule, but I know they have a really tough schedule for Zultwagen, so a really important first 3 points for them for sure. And also not so significant as well, but they got 3 victories in 2022, two of them against Serra as well. So now it's time to get some points somewhere else.
That's a great stat. We did say you were Mr. Stat Attack, and I forgot quite how poor they actually were. So to be reminded, that's timely.
On the
Um,
other hand, it doesn't say much. I also know that.
yeah, that's true. Let's move on to Binky's boys at Steyr for St Trudum 1, Union Saint-Gilloise 1. Now, this game was the late game on Saturday night, and I saw all of this game, and I quite enjoyed it. A tale of two fantastic goals, I have to say. Hayashi scoring a brilliant goal on the 22nd minute, I think it was. There was some lovely wing play, 1-2 interchange, which led to a fantastic cross. And I particularly liked the way Hayashi took a step inside to create enough room to anticipate the header, which he buried. Another leaping salmon. Fantastic goal, which was bettered by Simon Adingra's goal on his debut for Union, taking the ball running pretty much from his own 18-yard box down the other end of the park, turning inside, outside, and then curling it into the old postage stamp. An absolutely brilliant goal. One of those ones that well, it got me up out of my seat, I have to say. It was very much an oh yes moment. Brilliant goal. Good game this. I thought, St Trudon have started the season kind of quite confidently. They did look very much to me like the side who'd picked up where they left off last season, and it'll be interesting to see how they do in the coming weeks.
They really do look decent. How they did not manage to win in the end is though a miracle. It's a very poor finish from Bruno in his first game for them. And at the other hand, a good save for Maurice. The main thing for him there was that he was really quick back on his feet. Yeah, and then you always have to be a bit lucky, of course. So and for some context, so there was a free kick at the final seconds, the final kick of the game almost. First Intrada. It went into the wall, but it stayed. It bounced off the wall and it fell for Bruno's in feet. I don't know how much out, but not maybe 5 yards out. And he just hit it completely. Well, he should have. He did hit it instinctively, but not composed and not hard enough. So it went a bit too much into the middle, where Maurice, who was already down on the ground with the free kick, managed to get back on his feet and keep the ball close to his chest. Even that's actually another impressive fact about that, because another rebound would have been costly as well.
Yeah, I thought Union's kind of grew in confidence in the second half. I thought they started quite slowly for me and looked a little bit off it.
From the newcomers, Adingra, outside of his goal already in the first half, I also thought he made a good impression. And I think he made the best impression out of their newcomers as well, as a Mitoma replacement if we compare to last season. Dennis Eckert, yeah, can't really say much based on this game. They will need to get their goals from everywhere to compensate for Undav's amount of goals, and that's more because of that amount of goals and assists than for any individual player's performance. But I can't really judge too much on Eckert on based on this.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some signs from Ienza that he could be useful. He made some really good runs, and I think his thinking. He's clearly an intelligent footballer rather necessarily than an instinctive striker, which is interesting, which makes it very different to kind of Undav. A player who did massively impress me though was Simon Adingra. I think he's going to be a fantastic addition. He adds pace and a bit of quality to the side. And I think they're going to need that as well. I think he's going to create opportunities for them as well, which is really important too. In terms of pitching him with goals, as you were saying. So I think he's really impressed me this weekend, much more so than I was expecting. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do in the coming weeks, particularly with some big European games coming up for Union as well.
Well, now I opened FODMAPs to answer a bit more informed about Eckert already. Maybe it was not just my lack of seeing him because he had the least touches of all players. Not necessarily a surprise as a striker, but he was relatively absent. He didn't let's say he didn't go off on a flying start, but that doesn't say anything about what will follow. Of course.
Yeah, that's right. Let's move on to Sunday's action, shall we? The big game at the start of the day was the game at the Jan Breidel, which finished Club Brugge 3, Genk 2. The scorers, obviously, Andreas Skov Olsen scoring a couple, including a very dramatic late winner. Hans Van Aken obviously getting a goal as well on the day. The Genki's goals coming from Cyril Dessers, obviously making his return after his loan period at Feyenoord, a player who's been doing very well, scoring a lot of goals actually in the last few months, and Mike Trezor as well. I suppose the first question I have to you, Joris, seeing as you are a resident Genki, is do you think that Genk deserved more from this game?
I don't think there's even anyone that would say otherwise as a non-Genk fan, as an objective one. They definitely deserved more. Whether that's a draw or a win, that's maybe some other question. I would still already, with my biased view, say a win because they should have killed the game in the first half, forcing Mignolet to do 8 saves, which is a lot. Some of them were good saves. Some of them, the finishing probably should have gone better. Desters managed to score. The thing about him that's he has his qualities and he really showed them because he also created a lot of those chances. Mechelen really had a nightmare game against him, especially the first half, getting the balls off them with his pressure. But his finishing was unfortunately not always on point, and that's I think is a bit the thing with Dessers, why he's never going to be my favorite striker. And just also what his problem maybe is as a striker. He is at his best in games like this, where there is also a lot of space behind of defense and that he can exploit, which he did really well here. But on the other hand, he's also one of the worst 1 versus 1 finishers I've seen in Genk so far. And yeah, as a striker, these things will, of course, become more and more important. I was hoping that after he got his goal, which was a really nice finish, instinctive finish, that he would have less doubts, but he went 1-on-1 versus Mignolet again. Yeah, no, he didn't even get to a shot at that time, I believe, because Mata came. He was able to take the ball off his feet before he managed to shoot. He was not decisive enough to at least get a shot out. Mignolet really had a really great game in the first half. 1 point is already Oyen got off then after at the back end of the first half. That was already a potential turning point. It would prove important because in the end, Paintsill, his replacement, was in the end the cause for the penalty. In the end gave Club Brugge the opportunity to score before the 1-0. It should have been 0-2. Well, could have. This may be better wording, but with better finishing, it could have been 0-2, 0-3 maybe already, and then it would not have hurt that much. Genk bounced back the first time for that Dessers equalizer to get to the break at 1-1, which at that time Genk should have been out of sight. Second half started really well still, despite the Owen being off already. With scoring the 1-2 and marking Tresor's first goal in as a Genki as well after more than exactly 1 season, I guess you could say, if it happens in this time. Naturally, I think as well, Club Brugge became a bit better. They managed to get put some pressure on Genk. Although I have to say, I was quite happy with how the game was going. I knew Club Brugge would be coming, but they didn't really create that much. Genk became a bit more sloppy at the ball and gave away a few chances. That was a worrying sign, leaving Tanaka alone for the 2-2. and then the drama, yeah, then the way that happened was already typical, because it actually happens quite often lately, as you might have witnessed already now as well, that Genk plays quite well when they're playing in Club Brugge or against Club Brugge, and even manage to get ahead, but somehow always the game slips out of their hands, and that's really frustrating is really the right word. Yeah, that it's
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. I suppose to add to your frustration as well, we know now, unfortunately, that Luca Oyen has torn his anterior cruciate ligament in his left knee and is set to be out for 6 to 8 months. You know, those who watch Belgian football regularly will be aware of how big a talent young Luca is, and I think the frustrating thing really is that he was set to start a lot under Rankin, I think, this season. So there's a lot of reasons to be down on that news. You were saying as well after the game, Joris, that you could see the early signs of Rankin's hands tactically over the side as well, and that you felt a little bit more optimistic about the season ahead.
Yeah, and then the injury news came, of course. That already takes away a lot of the things, because yeah, there's definitely an issue now. Well, first to come back to Owen again, yeah, I think it's really significant as well, because he was having a good game as well. Because it's probably the only highlight of his gonna be the highlight of his season for a long time. As mentioned, like not making Mata and getting a shot away. That was already in the one highlight that he will have in his reel for this season, at least. That he got that one in the back. Hopefully, by at the back end of the season, there will follow some more. They created room for him in the squad. So Bongonda, letting him leave. It still has to happen, but he's not going to play anymore for Genk anyway. Also, yeah, and not getting anyone else in. There were the Selamani rumors. In the end, that deal fell through, and they really confirmed, okay, then we'll just go for it with the youth players. And then yeah, this happens in the first game of the season. That's, yeah, additionally, like, this is probably less relevant, but as a Genk fan, even more frustrating, I guess. Again, is that Adnan Abid didn't make any minutes yet, and probably wouldn't make that many minutes in this season in the first team yet, but was promoted to the senior squad for the season. And also is a winger. I've seen him mostly play on left wing as well. Last season in the youth league, for example, he also tore his ACL just 2 weeks ago. Now that has become somehow significant, because he would have been a potential replacement for Oy. Yeah, unfortunately, also Paintsill didn't have a really encouraging rest of the game then, so I also don't see it too much in Paintsill with.
I was going to ask you, what do you think Rankin's going to do now? Do you think he'll go with Pansel?
Well, for the time being, I think he will. It has come out of the club now that they are not, that they still have some options there. So another youngster, Bilal El Kanous, who also made his first appearance of the season. Another appearance in against Club Brugge already, and Tresor can also be on the wing, and Castro, the newcomer, that didn't get any minutes yet, is also a 10 that could be on that wing if needed. I suppose they are saying they still have some options, that they are at this time not looking for someone to replace yet, but well, that it's up to Franke though. So it could be happening that if Franke says, yeah, just that he has to push for another addition if he thinks that his options are not enough, that he needs to give the go. So Painter, I do think Painter will get it. Based on that, I do think Painter will get a chance in the first, at least against Standard in the next game, and maybe a few weeks later longer. But he has to perform really well straight away, and even then.
We'll find out over the next few weeks, certainly, that's for sure.
One thing I want to touch on, still, from Club Brugge's point of view, and the penalty, like, it was very, they got away with some issues already, because normally Van Aken would take the penalty as their usual penalty taker. He was also clearly not happy when they had a little quarrel with Laren, who would take the penalty. And yeah, of course, if that happens, you have to score. And Laren didn't. He hit the posts. So if that bounce would not have gone to Skoff Olsen and and led to the 3-2 in the end, there definitely would have been some trouble brewing, despite that Moefkes said that Van Aken was too tired to take the penalty, and that given had said that he didn't want to take the penalty. Well, his face told differently. So that's why I'm so convinced that it's bullshit. So since they also had the same kind of issue in the Champions League a few years ago, where they lost the game with 1-0 in the end, yeah, and that was a bit of a scandal.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard a player use tiredness as an excuse for the fact that they simply weren't up for taking the penalty. That's definitely a new one. Let's move on, shall we, to the Achter de Kazerne for Mechelen 0, Antwerp 2. Both of Antwerp's goals coming from a certain Mr. Michael Frey. Here's let's ask the obvious question first of all, because I'm really curious to know what you think about this, Joris, because we talked about this a lot recently on our pre-season preview. Does Frey's performance this weekend and those two goals kind of prove that really he should be starting ahead of Janssen? Because I thought he was excellent.
Yeah, again, early days, but I just think we might be running into confirmation bias here as well. But I think we all three thought that he should anyway as well. Actually, I was a bit surprised that he was starting. Yeah, based on what we know from both players, and especially in the recent years, I would always start him before Janssen. Talking about trouble brewing already as well. It's not trouble yet, and it might not become trouble, but potentially there could, of course, be that there's that looming issue if Janssen doesn't play because he has the second highest salary in Belgium now, so he really has to get a significant amount of game time. You can't really just bench him, especially also, of course, since he's deciding from the new era for under Overmars. But what a brilliant finish, though, that first goal. For not only the finish, what Frey did there, probably also not the last time we see this coming. A long ball from Alderweireld, and we all know he has a weapon at his feet there as well. He is really good with long balls. And whether it's Frey or Janssen, they both should be able to feed off that as well. Either like Frey did here and do it individually even, or with layoffs with both chest or headers. Potentially, it's probably not the last time we see an Alderweireld assist in this kind of form. But yeah, what Frey did was magnificent, of course, and nice. Mechelen's defense definitely was not on point either, have to say that. But yeah, they gave him too much time, but he did manage to beat his man and then curl it nicely in the top corner. So yeah, a really nice finish. Another season of the goal of the season, goal of the season contender, maybe. From my point of view, I think both teams were not completely ready yet. Antwerp were a bit more up for it. They had a striker that's a proven goal scorer as well. Now, that made the difference. They were not completely impressive for the rest, but the same can be said about Mechelen from my point of view, and I'm sure you have some more things to say about that as well.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting to hear Danny Boyce talking afterwards about how disappointed he was with how they played defensively. We've highlighted the fact that Danny Boyce has a little bit more of a reputation for not being defensive, but certainly being more of a solid coach when it comes to the foundations of a side than Rankin was. And if he could find that balance and instill that to the side, that Mechelen could have a very good season. Obviously, the balance hasn't quite been found yet, because I think defensively they weren't great this weekend, and it's interesting that Van Leberg was substituted at half time, apparently according to Weiss, because he was running the risk of a second yellow card. And when you're going 1-0 down against a side who is as good as Antwerp can be offensively, then that's a dangerous position for a defender to be in. They can't afford too many more fouls. So his defence was that he was protecting Van Leberg. I have a feeling it was one of those, and I'm still a bit divided on this about whether he was being scapegoated slightly for the overall defensive performance. I thought that was kind of quite a brave call to make in week one. But yeah, I think Mechelen are clearly still adjusting to tactical tweaks under the new manager, and obviously some new players coming in and players getting familiar with each other. I think they'll be disappointed with that, because there was certainly enough firepower on that pitch to score a few goals. And I just felt that, some of the basic things that they've done very well in recent seasons, they didn't do as well at that this weekend. I think they had something like 14 or 15 shots in the game, but only 3 of those were on target. And that's quite unusual for them. So I think their shooting boots did desert them a week this weekend a little bit. And I think, I think there might be some more additions to come in there as well. It was interesting to see Julian Ngoy obviously playing up front on his own as well. That surprised me slightly. So we'll see if they change that kind of in coming weeks as well. But they've got a big game coming up this weekend as well against another side who lost, and we'll talk about those opponents shortly. But I think there's certainly the word that will be drummed into them in training this week is solidity and improvement. That's for sure.
And additionally, to come back to Frey, what did you make of the way he converted the penalty, also to carry over an issue, I guess, that from last season?
Yeah, I think Michael Frey has a cheeky side to him. I think we've seen that in him plenty of times before. And I think that kind of typified that, to be honest. One thing I would say about Frey is I really do think the fact that he seems anyway initially seems to be second choice behind Janssen, although he wasn't this weekend. I think he's really responded very positively to that challenge, if you like. He's really picked up the gauntlet that's been thrown down to him, and clearly he's saying to the manager, "Look, I'm your man." It's the other way around. But I do agree with you. I think this is the great coaching challenge for Van Bommel is going to be keeping both of these players happy for a number of reasons. I think if he can achieve that, then obviously they'll probably have as good a season as they would like to have. But that's going to be Van Bommel's, I think, biggest headache, keeping those two strikers happy. I do expect them to bring in more players, though. Obviously, good length of time with the window still. I have a feeling that Antwerp will Big Paul the wallet, as I like to call him, will splash the cash, I think, big time on another two or three players, I think, before the window closes in September.
Well, I don't think there's a lot of doubts about that as well. Now, to come to think of it, we could also do it in a separate segment, but we don't have that much league news, so I'll just drop it here. They really were already under pressure, of course, because their performance against Rita on Thursday in the Conference League qualifier was underwhelming, not only in the scoreline, which was 0-0, but also they didn't create much. It really looks like they have, if they don't find a solution, they will really struggle against teams with low blocks to really unsettle those teams and break that deadlock. And let's hope for the coefficient definitely that they will do better this Thursday in the return game in the Pristina, I believe. And I think Trita doesn't play in their home stadium, but European games they play in Pristina. Big game already.
Yeah, that's right. Best wishes to the old, absolutely.
Otherwise, a crisis is looming already. I would even say
Yeah,
because of the money.
yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. I think that, they've put themselves in a slightly difficult position there. They definitely have it all to do this week, and we wish them well. It's not just Antwerp fans that are kind of hoping for a positive result for the great old this week. There, let's head in another direction, shall we? Let's jump across to Brussels. We'll head to the capital for Anderlecht 2, Oostende 0. And I think let's start, Joris, with a certain Mr. Adrian Treble, because there's been a lot of chat about him over the last couple of weeks. He's come back into the squad after his loan, and Mazu has really embraced him, likes what he has to offer, and is really giving him a chance. Wiped his slate clean and looks like he's going to be a regular starter under Mazu. The reason I want to start here is because this is a really interesting one, because I know a lot of Anderlecht fans feel quite nervous about this, both tactically and on a personal level as well. They're worried about his ability to lose the ball, if you like, in dangerous places as well. Although he did have a rather lovely assist for Ashimiru's first goal, even if a particularly unfortunate defensive lapse was also played its part in that. So, what do you think of the Trebel situation?
I honestly don't want to talk too much about that anyway, because I think we're giving the man too much credit. He left the club once under an excuse that he couldn't make a training to help agent Bayat sign a player for Nantes, and he used the excuse of the pregnancy of his wife. That's already a reason enough to not want him in his team. For everyone that also thinks that considers him a professional at all times, well, this story is already mad enough to not do that. But apart from that, yes, the assist was nice, definitely, but also for a large part because of him, not only, but the whole midfield, Ashimeru as well. They gave away a lot of space against, to be honest, a not so great Ostende side, and better teams will punish them. So I think these worries about losing the ball, running everywhere, so being omnipresent, but not always in the good way, could hurt Anderlecht for the in different in different games in against, because now it worked out because Ostende didn't make much out of these chances or potential chances, opportunities to break again. Maybe I still feel like he's a liability more than an asset, to put it that way. Even though he had a nice assist, but I also would indeed say, yeah, Medley, what are you doing there? Whole Ostende defense was playing it perfectly to put 4 or 5 Anderlecht players offside, but Medley did not get that note clearly, and yeah, it was a player that gave the room for that. But of course, regardless of that, it was a nice, well, not only the pass itself, but also the way he got the ball. Before that, there he did a nice action, but I'm clear. I'm really not a Trevel fan, as you can hear. And
We'll certainly we'll find out in the coming weeks as to whether that was the right call of Mazu's or not, or whether he's going to twist and kind of go elsewhere with that. Certainly a brave choice. It was interesting afterwards as well to hear Felice Mazu talking about how in the first half he felt that there was a lot of technical waste, as he put it, from some players, and I think this was a reference to the fact that we know that Felice Mazu likes his sides to play very direct, vertical football, and I think he felt there was far too much kind of pretty passing going on when there was a more direct route as well, and that's something that he's trying to instill in this side, and obviously they're adjusting to that. I felt that they were much better in the second half. Actually, clearly part of his message had got through to them at half time. They were much more direct in the second half and more effective, and obviously new striker Fabio Silva scoring what I thought was a really very good goal, really to win the game on the 88th minute. Really good run and an absolutely wonderful finish from him. I mean, this is a striker who clearly knows where the goal is. I felt his finish was really really clinical, and it was nice to see him being embraced by his teammates, and you could clearly see Olsen saying to him, remember this, remember your first goal at home in front of these fans, and that will help him settle, because he looked sitting on the bench like he was kind of waiting for his moment, I would say.
or was Olsen just saying, "You remember that? Indeed, shoot yourself instead of passing to me because I never scored." No, that was a really good finish indeed. Definitely.
Yeah, I think he wanted that one all for himself, didn't he? I was going to ask you, did you see anything in Ostend to suggest that it's going to be anything other than a slog for them this season?
It's really difficult to say after a game against, well, in a game after a game that they were expected to lose. I guess in the beginning they were surprised me in a positive way, without being like really really great, or putting a lot of things in, but they did pressure Anderlecht more than I thought they would, and well, as I already mentioned, indeed, there was some room, that's a space to explore that Anderlecht let them in a way, but maybe it's a bit of both. Of course, they also, well, were looking for that, so it's difficult at this point already to say much about which was more important for in this factor. But they didn't create enough. Definitely, there was no real clear cut chance. Well, they created a little. There were a few penalty shouts at the end, at the back end of the game as well, where I feel maybe they could have given it even, but well, that's not still not really a shot. So like, it was not so threatening yet, or clumsy for defending at that time. Yeah, and interesting. Yeah, I'm still very interested to see how the dynamic between that. So to come back to Anderlecht already, how the dynamic with Mazu will be, because I also already heard from a lot of fans, is this the kind of football we really are going to expect? Because the Anderlecht fans really don't want the football. Many Anderlecht fans, at least the ones I know, don't like this too direct, but they already thought it was too much of a this kind of direct play and getting the ball in the box as quick as possible, anything else instead of the nice build up they're used to. But if Mazu already said the opposite thing, it doesn't look good for these fans. But yeah, potentially also that might turn on Mazu quickly as well. That's if the results wouldn't follow. That's also a bit why I'm very surprised with his appointment, because the clash of styles of the club and the coach. It still could work, of course. Nothing set in stone there.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of really good points there, Joris, and I think it's fair to say that the pressure's on Felice. It certainly is. When he wants to play with a kind of house style, if I can describe it like that, that is slightly at odds with what Anderlecht fans expect. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out in coming weeks as well. Let's move on to the final game of the weekend, which was Sunday night's late fixture. Was Westerlo's return to the top flight. They managed to get a 2-0 win at home against Cercle Bruges, goals coming from Erdon Dake and Veto Kele, with a very late second goal to kind of seal it for them in the 95th minute, I think it was. I saw this game, Joris, and I was quite disappointed with Cercle on the whole. I felt that they didn't do any of the basic things that they've done so well for a while now. They didn't impose themselves, really. Westerlo grew into it, and of course the game really turned in Westerlo's favour on the half hour when Boris Popovic was sent off for that second yellow card. And Cercle never really quite recovered after that. They were the better side up to this point, but there wasn't a great deal of chances being created by either side. Cercle giving away, the first goal, Daki's goal, was a pretty cheap goal actually to concede, and they'll be really disappointed with that one. There'll be a lot of analysis of that one, I think. And the other thing I took away from it was I was quite disappointed with, and it's too early to judge him, so I'm not doing that, but I was quite disappointed by how anonymous Ayase Uida was, a player who I'm quite excited to see how he does for Cercle. We've talked him up a little bit because I think he is exciting. Of course, he's just arrived in Belgium. He's just acclimatizing himself to a new language and a new culture and all of those big challenges. So this is no way a criticism, but you wouldn't really have known he was playing in this game on Sunday evening. He was that quiet, but he will benefit from obviously kind of getting a full game under his belt. Westerlo will be hugely encouraged by that. I think they'll take great confidence from that because I'm sure they looked at this fixture much like Cercle did when the fixtures came out and thought, "Ooh, this is a tricky start for us." And again, much like some other sides, I do think Westerlo's home form is going to be quite important to them this season.
I'm also indeed negatively surprised, but of course, early days by Ueda. Indeed, least touches of all players, lost most duels as well. So maybe he needs to adapt to the physicality of the league as well. But also because of him, with him in mind, I put Cercle Brugge higher up in my prediction, way higher up in my prediction table than I had indicated, I guess, in the preview episode. And I already feel a little bit of regret of that if he doesn't perform. But
Well, it's a really interesting point. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Joris, in the middle of your flow, but you raise a really important point there. I think, Aida actually, outscored his expected XG in the J League by quite a bit. And I think I was certainly basing my prediction much like you on if he could do anything similar to that in terms of exceeding his expected XG, then I think Cercle would be in course for a really, really good season. And they may yet, obviously we're only one game down, but I think that goes to the heart of exactly what you were saying there. That I think what he does is going to be really, really important for them. He's going to be a big player for them certainly.
for Cercle now as a whole, yeah. I hinted to it earlier on already. There was a second team that didn't get any shot on targets this weekend. And the surprising one in this case was Cercle Brugge. Indeed, they did not get any shot on targets, which is disappointing. Even, of course, if you play a long time with then a very cynical challenge as well was for that second yellow card. That was also not the brightest move of Popovic. I did enjoy in a funny way. It's actually not funny, but well, it is funny that there's a nice GIF going around with a Cercle fan throwing the beer cup to the referee. So actually, it's a sad thing, but it just still made me laugh. You can clearly see the beer flowing to the referee. So yeah, the fans and their emotions. Please don't do that. Even though it gave that a funny moment. Also, another funny moment was in Brugge earlier that day when when Dessers celebrated his goal in the corner where the Brugge fans, some Brugge fans were also going into his provocation. I guess that's I reacted a bit too much on it and was going wild not in a good way, showing some fingers we don't want to see around the football.
Yeah, I was going to say it's always nice to have some entertainment, even if it is in week one. There's lots of circumstances in which beer cups would be thrown, and I thought I was waiting for something else to be thrown when I was watching that. So thankfully, it was just some disposable beer cups.
Yeah, some nice beer shower for the referee. That's in the end it. But of course, please don't do that. But I couldn't help but laugh though. That's. But yeah, and to come back to Westerlo, yeah, I guess I didn't watch that much of this game, but what I've seen was quite good, quite solid, I guess. Yeah, I missed that the first part of the game, so I can't say much there. Indeed, how it was until Popovic got that red card. After that, yeah, the goal was easy, but nice to finish it off from Daichi. Well, to stay composed after the initial miss, I guess. To find it back, end up in the back of the net. And noteworthy is also Vito Kele getting his goal already. Ben mentioned that he wouldn't be playing that much last week, and that might still be the case. And he based that on the performances and the amount of minutes he got last season. And well, to keep on at his performance of last seasons, he equaled his goal tally of last season, and that in one league higher up now, so on a level higher. So that's a good sign for him. I was also surprised because I was looking up. I thought he was way older than he actually is. He's only 30, so well, he's not a spring chicken anymore. But it's not that he's an old man. We might actually see a bit more of him based on this goal, of course. Although, if I may say such things, he didn't look at his fittest level yet either, though. So I don't expect him to be playing 90 minutes at all, but he might feature as a sub in the next games, I think. And it was a good finish, actually.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see what they can do in the coming weeks as well, because they've got an interesting fixture schedule coming up. There we have it, everyone. Match day 1 in the books, and that's just about all we've got time for in this episode of the BFP. But before we leave you, let's just recap what's coming up this week. Match day 2 kicks off on Friday evening, the big game being Union Saint-Gilloise at home to Charleroi. And if you are in the UK, you're in luck, because you can watch that game free and live on Mola TV Sports. Saturday's fixtures are Cercle Bruges at home to Anderlecht, and again, this is another Mola TV game, so you can watch that free and live if you're in the UK. Saturday also sees Leuven taking on Westerlo, Oostend taking on Mechelen, which already has got an interesting complexion, having both lost their opening games. And the other fixture on Saturday is Ghent at home to St Truden. Sunday opens with Joris' side, Genk, got their first home game of the season. Ronnie Dyler's Standard Liège providing the opposition there. And this is the third free and live Mola TV game if you're in the UK, so you'll be able to take that one in. The other Sunday fixtures, Eupen at home to Club Brugge, Serang take on Kortrijk, and Antwerp are at home to Zulte Waregem. Of course, if you're not in the UK, you can see all games live either on 11 Sports or via 11 Sports website. You can also access them on a pay-per-view basis, and some countries will also be showing these games live on the One Football app, depending on where you're based. Joris, thanks so much for joining. It's been really good to catch up.
Yes, glad to join, and let's hope that Ben is back. Even though I think we didn't do so bad, then I think he'll be proud of us. But it's always nice to have a host. I hope the listeners also forgive us if I'm going on for a little longer, or that we were a bit ping-ponging between ourselves now. It's a bit of a different dynamic that we're not that used to, but next week normally Ben should be back, so don't worry there.
I personally think a little bit more Joris is no bad thing. That's for sure. If any listeners are freelancing in football, by the way, you might be interested in signing up to Freelance Football Ops, which a lot of you will know is a subscription based newsletter. They find jobs covering writing, design, video, audio, and generally anything in football media every week. And you can find that by visiting freelancefootballops.com. You can find all the info on how to sign up for their newsletter, which is highly recommended. Also, if you enjoy the pod and you enjoy what we're up to, please do consider leaving us a little review on your podcast platform of choice. We'd be really grateful if you would consider leaving us a review wherever you access your pods, because that helps more people find us and increase that English language coverage of what we think is the best league in European football. Also, as well, if you've got any questions for the team here at the BFP, then we're always happy to hear from you and love to get stuck into some feedback as well. So questions, comments and feedback, always gratefully received. And you can do that by getting in touch with us directly on Twitter. You can find us at Belgian Podcast. You can also attack each of us individually if you like. You can find our Ben at BenJack94. Joris can be found at Joris_Beck, that's BECQ, and I can be found at Scott_Coin. Alternatively, if you prefer just to drop us an email, you can do that at belgianfootpodcast@gmail.com. So once again, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you very soon on another episode of the BFP.